Hey, come join me for some trash talk today, because that's exactly what I'm going to do with my guest. But we will be talking about food trash. Okay, so it's interesting. So before I jump into the dumpster here, let me introduce my partner in crime, who really one of her article motivated me to get in touch with her, my fellow dietitian, Dr. Joan Blake,
Right.
who is a author, podcast host herself. I believe she has a podcast called Spot On, which
You're
I'm
correct.
interested in learning more about. She has her own book. She has basically a social media personality, and considered one of the authorities in the area of food sustainability, health, and wellness. So, Joan, welcome to Ask Nutritionist Deepa.
I am
Podcast.
so excited to be here.
My goodness. So, Joan, before we proceed, give us a little story about you. Who you are? Where is the? I mean, I have an accent. People know my origin is Indian. You have an accent.
Right.
What's
Yes.
up with that?
Yes, I bet your listeners could tell where I'm from. I am a Jersey girl, and so a Jersey girl. So I grew up right outside of New York, and I sound like I'm a Jersey girl from New York. But most importantly, I mean, let's get the credentials correct.
Yes.
And the most important thing is I'm Italian.
Okay.
So you're going to see these hands going all the time, throughout this lovely podcast of yours. But that's sort of what got me hooked on nutrition and the love of food and the understanding of the power of food, in really keeping you healthy. And it just was a wonderful marriage made in heaven. So I just went on and got a master's degree and a trained registered dietitian. Of course, got a doctorate degree, and I teach at Boston University. I teach intro to nutrition class, which I wrote a textbook for that's used globally. I'm so blessed. I also wrote a textbook for nutrition majors or pre-med, and other books that I've written. But I really just love taking the nutrition science and making it easy and understandable for people to incorporate into their life. So I'm a blogger. I have a podcast myself, as you mentioned, called Spot On, and it's with an exclamation point. And it really, what Spot On does, it just cuts through this media headline, so much misinformation, and really gives it to you straight in a fun, informative manner, but also doable strategies that you can use. Correct. And so I also write for U.S. News and World Report, and I am on a lot of media outlets to get interviewed, and I'm so proud and honored. This year, I am the 2020 Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Media Excellence Award recipient. So
congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm talking to a celebrity, a very famous person here.
First, can we just point out that you and I have the same closet? Because you didn't send me an email and say, wear hot pink. No. But look at this.
Look at this. I guess, great mind things alike. That's how we will.
Or we shop alike, one or the other.
We shop alike. I think, color brings so much vibrancy, and it's kind of getting gloomy here. And we need to bring color in terms of our food, what we wear, to uplift our souls here. And it's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Stick around. As you can see, Joan has a nice personality, sense of humor, and this is our dietitian's uniform that we are in today. And today we will be talking about some of the reasons of food waste in United States, and some strategies to learn as a consumer. What can an everyday person do to avoid food waste? And then I'll be sharing my food from scrap, broth, or a stock recipe, and so on and so forth. So Joan, dive into the dumpster and tell us, what is this food waste? Why is it a big deal? And what strikes your heart when we talk about food waste?
Sure. You know, this is a passion of mine because as I, dive deeper into the dumpster or deeper into the research,
Yeah.
I realized about 40% of the edible food that Americans have access to ends up in landfill. So, and at the same time, we have a large percentage of people who are food insecure. And, right now during this pandemic, it's even worse because you have people that are unemployed. You have people that maybe are not able to make ends meet. And, there's a situation, gee, do I get medicine or do I get food? Do I pay the mortgage or do I get food? And sometimes food is on the lower end of the checkoff list there. So right now we have a lot of people who are food insecure, yet at the same time, we're filling our landfill with all this edible foods. So there's many issues and reasons to this. And nearly everybody has a responsibility from the farm to the table. But people say, the farmer wastes so much food. At the processing plant, they waste so much food. It's the supermarket. No, the biggest culprit is you, the consumer. It really is. And there's so many reasons for this. And, I don't want to point fingers at the consumer per se. A lot of this is because of misinformation. The food label, the dates on the food label, this thing is crazy. I mean, it's crazy. There could be 10 different types of dating, use by, sell by, call your mother by. I don't know. It's just crazy. So this whole, I call it the dating game. But the good news is the USDA proposed this and the Food Market Institute proposed this to stop with this crazy, all these dates. And they have suggested only 2 dates to be used on the food label. The dates now that are on the food label only talk to food quality. So if it says, use by, that's for quality effect. That's all. That's when it's going to be at the peak of its quality. And after the date, it starts to go down a little bit in quality. That doesn't mean it's not okay to eat. You can still eat it. It just not be. Okay. So with all these dates, people have gone crazy. So what they have done is ask that we come down to 2 dates. Best if used by and used by. So best if used by will be for quality, the best taste. Used by will be for food safety. Okay, they're trying to get everybody to go down to these 2. The very good news is in the latest research in March, about 87% of the products that are now found in the supermarket are using these 2, best used by or used by. So that's what you can follow. And that's going to help you because I can't even tell you how many times people will look at a yogurt in the refrigerator, right? And so it says, the old thing was, sell by or use by, and it's a day over, they throw the yogurt away. And that's going into the landfill.
Yeah.
That yogurt is still safe to consume as long as you refrigerated it. Yes. But people get so scared and they throw these foods away. So that's the first thing is we got to understand the food label. So we got to make sure. And if it's, if it's those 2 labels and only those 2, that's what they now address. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we got to organize our refrigerator. I mean, because you have food in there that, sometimes it's a science experiment going on back there, okay? So what we want to do is organize it so we see things. And what you want to do is shop your kitchen and your refrigerator and your freezer before you go food shopping and get more food. So think and plan. I've been saying don't waste a good pandemic. Okay, so we should not waste this pandemic. And what this pandemic has done for us and for Americans is we're now cooking more at home. That's a very good thing because we know when you make dinners at home, you like to have more fruits and vegetables at the meal, which is very good for us. Yeah. They're also saving money. And they're also maybe utilizing their refrigerator and the freezer a little bit more. So they're getting in the habit of cooking. So this is very, very good. Now we got to make sure that post-pandemic that we keep up with, looking in our refrigerator, putting our meals together. And so we want to do a better job of planning. And what the pandemic has taught us through surveys, well, because of this pandemic, people didn't want to go to the supermarket 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
So what they started to do was just act like their grandmother and started looking at the circular and planning their meals for
Correct.
the week to 10 days because they didn't want to go to the supermarket. This is great. Not only did it save money, but saved food waste because there was planning involved. So we need to keep that going post-pandemic to reduce the food waste.
That's so true, because it's little sad that the pandemic had to happen for us to get this kick in our, where,
Right.
to get us in the kitchen and start cooking. But anyway, nature has kicked us around, so we are
Right.
a little more awake. But like you said, it needs to sustain, because
Right.
when I counsel, when I do talk to the patients and talk about cooking and eating healthy, many times they say, well, I buy all these fresh vegetables and they go waste, and I don't want to waste money, and hence I'm not going to eat vegetables. Okay.
Right.
But
Right.
that's like, throwing the baby with the bathwater here. I mean, you don't do that, because these days you have frozen vegetables.
Right, right. And that's what they found out from surveys from the pandemic and surveys from the Food Marketing Institute, now the Food Industry Association. What they found was it took a pandemic before the public understood that canned and frozen fruits and vegetables are just as healthy. So what happened during the pandemic, because they did not want to go to the supermarket multiple times during the week, they used the fresh up quickly. And then, so halfway through the week, the fresh was gone. Then they learned, gee, the canned tomatoes on the pantry, I could do that. The frozen peas, the frozen corn, the frozen mango slices, I can do that. And so they started to learn that, wow, frozen and canned could be fabulous backup when fresh goes. And they also learn to use the fresh. I always say the problem with the refrigerator is that you buy all this fresh vegetables, and then, pre-pandemic, you're out running around and you're socializing during the week, and you come home and you put these fresh vegetables downstairs in the refrigerator, the bottom with the vegetable crisper, which I call the vegetable graveyard, because they go in there and they don't come out. And then by the time the broccoli comes out, it looks like combat green, and you don't even know what to do with it, and then you toss it into the landfill.
Correct.
Well, what happened with the pandemic, that went in and that got used.
Correct.
So, and then like later on in the week, they started using the fresh and the canned. So it really worked out well. And again, going forward, I think these are habits that people are going to do, and it's going to reduce food waste.
I hope so, because I think it also gave people a little bit of confidence that, hey, it's doable to cook at home and eat at home. And we all have time. We all can find 30 minutes. We all can walk away from Netflix or whatever you are watching or doing, which is not so useful, and spend that time in prepping a meal. Last few months, I have also been reading quite a bit about the dried vegetables and fruits. That technology has really taken off, and there are slowly like slow dried vegetables and air dried vegetables, freeze dried vegetables, which retain most of the nutrients, extremely convenient. And the drying has also helped reduce food waste from the farm. So things have really changed. It's just a matter of us taking these matters in our own hands and being creative about it.
Right.
Like you said.
Right. And I think the consumer finally woke up and saw this. They also found out, whoa, I'm saving a heck of a lot of money by cooking at home. It's like, whoa, wow, and it's really amazing. So they're really feeling like, it's really cost effective. It doesn't take that much time for you to plan. It doesn't really plan this. And another thing they need to do is they need to cook once and eat twice. So you make big batches, all right? And then you use your freezer for more than just ice cubes and ice cream. So what you can do is divide it up and put it into the freezer, and then you have another meal for next week that you don't have to cook. So what happened was the consumer was like, gee, this is really interesting to do this. And in fact, I know a lot of people who would say, well, I don't know how to do this. Let me call grandma. So, and grandma, how did you make those meatballs? And it was like a bonding thing during this. And they learned how to cook like grandma cooked. And it was, I called it retro eating. And they, you know, it was fabulous because this is what your grandmother did. Hello, you know. And so we went back a little bit in retro eating and retro preparing, and I think people are excited. I also know that the sale of appliances for the kitchen are skyrocketing because people are getting into this and realizing I'm saving money, I'm saving time, and because of that, they're reducing food waste.
Absolutely, because on some level, this pandemic has taught us and is going to take us on a right track, because like you said, you know, self-realization, and as a society we are waking up to food waste and so many other issues, planet health, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's our health during the pandemic, post-pandemic, and this is not going to be the last pandemic in our lifetime. There is another infection, there is some other flu strain just sitting right around the corner. And if we don't feed our bodies through good food, homemade food, that doesn't mean, you know, fried food, because again, people spend a lot of time cooking a lot of junk as well, you know, comfort food. But I think we need to come out of our comfort zone and accept this as a reality. And like you are saying, cook like your grandma and maybe modify it to meet the demands of the new day, I mean, you know, modern times, and really get our nutritional status up and running. Otherwise we are going to be sick.
Right. And you know, you can have comfort foods, and I love comfort foods, but you can make them more healthy.
Correct.
All you have to do is just add more vegetables to them. So if you have, I'm going to give you an example. Macaroni and cheese. I mean, for goodness gracious, who doesn't like macaroni and cheese? I grew up with it in Jersey. All of New Jersey eats macaroni and cheese. So what you can do, and you have to get Kraft, okay? I'm not a sponsor of Kraft, but you know, Kraft. That's what you grew up with. 10 boxes for $1.
If you are going to eat it,
right. I mean, come on now. In New Jersey, you're having Kraft macaroni and cheese. Okay. So anyway. So the way to make that really more healthy when you do that, and affordable and very budget friendly, is to take a can of black beans, okay, cooked black beans. You know, I rinse them in a colander to get some of the sodium off. You cook up the mac and cheese, you add the beans, and you add about a cup of salsa. You have a Mexican macaroni and cheese. So let's just think of what we did. So we had traditional macaroni and cheese, and it was lovely and affordable and tastes very good, but it was lacking fiber and it was lacking vegetables. So what did we just do? We added vegetables in the salsa, fiber in the salsa, vegetables in the beans, and fiber in the beans. Not only that is, you know, you now have a vat of, you know, Mexican macaroni and cheese to which you go back to cook once, eat twice. So again, it's this kinds of thing. You make meatloaf, put grated vegetables in. You make tomato sauce, although in Italian families it's called gravy, but let's not go there. You can grate carrots in that. And what will happen when you cook the gravy or the tomato sauce, the carrots get cooked, and they take on a very meaty feeling to it. So it's almost like you added meat to the tomato sauce, and really all you did is shredded carrots. So these are the kinds of things where you can take your comfort foods and know that how can I add more vegetables to them to make it comfortable, and better for you.
Absolutely. You are so right, because I think deep down in my heart that people crave that familiar flavor. Okay, that their comfort food had. For example, I had a patient, and she finally realized why she liked sausage was because of that cracked black pepper in the sausage. And once we started seasoning her mushrooms with cracked black pepper, she gave up the sausage just like that.
Right,
you
right, right,
know.
right,
So
right. Or she can have some sausage, but let's put less of it in and more
correct,
mushrooms and
more
onions. So,
mushrooms,
so this
exactly.
way you get a little seasoning, the flavor of the sausage, but you're really surrounded by all of these vegetables. So it's just that, you want to think of where are the vegetables on the plate, and then what can we add to the vegetables to make the meal versus the
Absolutely
other way around. But all of that's going to improve your diet, but this planning and understanding that we don't want to waste the food.
correct.
And something else that we want to do is we oftentimes will have just a little bit of rice left over, and you'll say, it's not enough for me, I'm just going to throw it away. No, don't do that. Don't do it. So what you do is when you just have a little bit, you put them in little containers, freezer-proof containers, you put them in the freezer, right? And then on Thursday night, you look in the freezer and you have like a Friday smorgasbord dinner. And you take everything out and you have this Friday smorgasbord of all these little leftovers. The biggest thing when you go out to restaurants, when they were open, was small plates. Well, why don't you make small plates of leftovers for a Friday night and you don't have to cook? So it's this kind of retraining where
Correct.
say, no, I am not going to do that. Or I take that little bit of rice and say, tomorrow I'm going to open up a can of soup and I'm going to throw that rice in there and another bag of frozen vegetables. And now my can of soup is even more healthy and goes farther. So it's all of this retraining to use it up so that you don't waste it. And once you get into the habit of this,
Yes.
if you think you're saving money now in the pandemic, wait until you see how much money you're going to save by not throwing the food out. So it's going to
Absolutely.
help you on multiple levels.
Absolutely. And before the pandemic happened, I used to travel extensively cross country, both coasts, and internationally.
Yeah.
And there's always so much work to do. And I have, frozen entire head of broccoli and cauliflower right before I leave for airport if I am not able to do anything with it. And when I come back, my cauliflower, I defrost it and I can
Right.
immediately turn it into a
Right.
soup and it's ready. So
Right. Right.
experimenting is so important.
Right.
My mantra is when in doubt, freeze.
Yes. No, and that's so true. Stop. You got to use your freezer for more than ice cubes. So let's freeze and get those. You have a cupboard full of all those plastic containers to which you
Yes.
can't find the covers for, but that's a
Yeah.
whole other issue. But you have them all. Use them and stack them up. But like I said, before you go food shopping and bringing more food into the house, shop your cabinets, shop the refrigerator, shop your freezer to say, gee, I got this leftover rice. Okay, now all I got to do is buy blank and I have a meal together. So shop it before you go bring more food into the house.
Correct. Absolutely. So that takes us to our recipe exchange here. And I came up with from the scrap stock recipe. And I'm
Right.
sure you will agree with it. Not occasionally, often I should say, we have wilted herbs and, like shrunk radish. And you buy a container of mushrooms and you open the plastic on top and somebody just leaves it the way it is and it's all dried out.
Right.
You have seeds and skin of onions and garlics and when you take seeds out of cucumber or peppers. I personally don't, but some people do. So I freeze all those things, and then when the stars are aligned and I have time, I slowly boil it basically with turmeric and black pepper in it, and and that turns into a very robust soup or a stock base.
Sure.
That I use it in stir fry. I use it to make savory pancakes. I make stews out of it. I use it to sprinkle on my vegetables instead of oil. So there's so many things
Right.
that come out of it, and it's a very simple recipe. There is no proportion, taking all, like I said, all the scrap and water and boiling it with some herbs and spices. I mean, how hard is that?
Right. And absolutely. And then you have this flavorful thing that you can either
Absolutely.
freeze in like ice cube trays or whatever, so
Correct.
you only need a little bit of it. But even if at the end of the week you got these little leftovers, you know, have to have make a soup, and you don't have to do a soup from scratch.
Mm.
Just get a couple cans of soup and then add all this other stuff to it, and you have homemade soup. You made it, okay? You opened the can. Take credit for it, okay? And so everything goes into this pot, and then you have a flavorful soup that, and the winter is coming. It's getting cold. Everybody loves soup. So I think that what the consumer really just needs to do is, before they toss, say, what can I do with this? I can do something with this,
Correct.
and get out of the habit of over purchasing food and under eating it. And rather than to make sure that you use all the food that you buy, and buy enough. And if you buy excess, too much, freeze it.
Absolutely. Joan, I cannot tell you how valuable these tips are, and I hope audience would take one or two things out of this conversation, and really do a little bit of soul searching with themselves and their families. And if we could work on, if we could start, like you said, looking at every piece of food. For example, before we leave, I work in a community garden.
Ooh,
Our local food pantry, Murray
right,
Wilkinson's food pantry, has a community garden.
right.
I cannot tell you how much food goes waste because
Yeah,
we don't have enough volunteers to harvest it.
yes, yes,
So here we have food pantry to
right,
reduce the hunger, and here on left hand side we have
right,
this. So I'm also urging people to find a community garden and volunteer to harvest
right.
this produce there, because that is also another huge source of food waste.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but John, please tell us, where can we find you?
Okay, okay, yes, you can find me.
Give your
Yes, I would love for you to find me. I am on social media. I'm on Instagram and on Twitter at Joan Blake. So that's really easy. And I also have a podcast, a nutrition, health, and wellness podcast called Spot On with an exclamation point. And it's on all major platforms, including Apple and Stitcher. And I really hope you can come on and subscribe to it.
Yeah.
And each week we have a different guest. And just follow me. I mean, I'm always posting on my Facebook page, and you're welcome to join that. We have a Spot On Facebook page that I hope that you would join, so this way you'll understand what episodes that are coming out. And follow me or get in touch with me. My email address is salgy@bu.edu. So I love to communicate with consumers and other peers of our own. So, I'm out there trying to spread the good news of good nutrition for all, just like what you're doing.
That is perfect. We will have this episode obviously in audio format on Ask Nutritionist Deepa's podcast library, as well as on YouTube and Facebook. So there is no way that people can miss where to find you or me and people like us. I do thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule to join me today. And I want to thank my audience, my viewers, for listening in. Please share these episodes with your loved ones, strangers, family. Unless we spread the message, we are not going to make a big change. So thank you for listening to Ask Nutritionist Deepa. I'm Dietitian Deepa, and I will see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right.